Good morning. Richard Borden's my name. We're out here at Borden Ranch, the headquarters of Borden Bees. We're going to try to explain today about grafting queen bees, actually the raising of the larva and the transfer of the larva. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It's Sunday morning, the day after we had a big rainstorm in here. We normally don't graft on Sundays, but we're trying to graft more queen cells to create more nuke boxes to keep this thing moving right along. Right over there now you can see Victor. All these hives right in here have all what we call breeder queens in them. All the boxes are numbered 1 to about 35 over there, and Victor's over there picking out actually the larva that we're going to take inside to actually transfer the larva from these hives that actually have queens into them to the hives where, and we'll turn right over there, Victor, I don't know if you can see that or not, where Mike is over there. These are queenless hives. They've got a feeder and 7 frames, and then they have the cell racks in them. And then today we're trying to put 1 cell rack in about 25 to 30 of those. There's 36 of them out there. So every other day we graft between 24 to 36 racks, which is somewhere around 800 queen cells. So basically we have queenless hives here, and on this side here we have queen right. So that's one of the big confusions in raising queen bees. You have to have larvae. So these hives here are the hives that I explained on TV 3-4 weeks ago. These have Russian breeder queens. We have yellow breeder queens. We have crosses between Italians and yellows. We have all this mixed up. We just are trying to raise about a queen called Smart now, which is the one that's supposed to be resistant to the varroa mite. We have 10 of those out there, which we're trying to raise those for next year's drones. The next year's drones will mate with the Italian queens, and they'll try to get more resistance to varroa. Generally those bees have tighter hair on their bodies, and the varroas have a harder time sucking off, and they also have this behavior of actually grabbing onto the mite and pinching one of its legs. So these 6-legged mites can't crawl on the bees. I don't know if you can see clear over there. We've got pollen cakes on this morning. We put on 2 days ago. You always have to have plenty of pollen in these hives, which creates the royal jelly when we're grafted. I think now we'll kind of shut off. We'll go back inside for a while, and we'll see what's going on in there. All right, we're back inside the warehouse now, and we're actually grafting larvae. We're actually transferring the larva into the cell cups. My sister Marie is here with us this morning, and she's going to be transferring larvae. Basically what happens here, I'll try to explain, see if we can get a picture of this. This little tool is a little device, and on the end of this tool is a little tongue. And that little tongue comes out, you can actually pick the larva up. So the way I personally do it is you can retract that and deposit the larva in the bottom of the cell cup. So you can actually watch Marie now. She's probing around in there, trying to pick a larva up. She'll put it over in the cell cup. The larvas have to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 to 36 weeks old. Aurelia. No need them. Ultra box. Bring it over here, Mike. So what we're trying to do is move those larvae into that cell cup. We're doing a procedure called dry grafting. Just leave it there a second. Dry grafting, which is transferring these larvae without royal jelly. Normally we'd be using royal jelly because we like using royal jelly. The royal jelly procedure is to pull the larva out of cell cups we grafted 2 days ago, and then take these cups and fill them up half full of water, and we have a special tool we'll stir these up with. We'll pull the larva out of the cell cup, and then we'll add warm water to that. We'll squirt in about 2 to 3 drops in an eyedropper, and then we will take this jelly spoon, put these tools down, and you actually stir that up. So there's nothing in there, but we actually stir that up, and then you take the tool out, and you go with the procedure of this here. They'll have your jelly ready to go, and these are the cups you're going to prime. So you sit here, I have another operator here, and then you swirl around in there and you just start going. just make these little dabs right in the bottom like that, and then back in here about every fourth one you go 1, 2, 3, 4. So put just a little drop of jelly in there. So when you come with the grafting tool, you come into your bee frame, and then this would be away from there then. But you'd have a prime gel cup, and then you just reach in there, and I'll go in here and get a larva out just to make this a little more clean. But then you get this larva out, and it's right there on the end of that thing. They're very small. That is probably in the neighborhood of a 64th of an inch long and probably about a 100th of an inch wide. But then very gently you put that in the bottom. If that was a prime cup, you just kind of wipe it right off in there. So it's, and I'll try to put that over there. I don't know if that's any better to see or not. But that's a larva right there. It's probably in the neighborhood of 24 hours old. When the queen lays the egg, it takes 3 days for what they call fall over, and then from that fall over point, it's 24 hours, between 24 to 36 hours when we try to pick that larva up. So as fast as we'll go, we'll just kind of start going here again. Marie, you got one done there? Let me put some of these tools away here. Everything nowadays is high-tech communication. We're in constant touch with, our phones are always on this time of day, and because we have bees scattered all over the valley now with prunes and a few of these almond orchards, and there's always somebody running into a pallet of bees or something's going on, so we always have our phone lines open. So if somebody has a problem with beehives somewhere in the valley today, they can call us and we'll run right down and take care of any of these problems. But I'll try to do this one here, Richard, to show, and I don't know if you can see that one or not, but that one there's a lot bigger. Now that one there is almost a day older. That one there is probably 36 hours in the grub stage. These are called grubs, really. So they're actually little worms. Okay. Well,
could you hold it against the black?
Well, let's try doing.
Be able to see it.
What about there?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'll do is I'll pick that up. You back up a little bit, and then we'll put it right in this cup. You retract, lift that lever up, and you swipe out. So it's actually, you extend the tongue. Now I'll try to do it here. We'll get a real big one now, which is, this here is about, that's one of the beauties is, now this one here is almost, I'd say about 2.5 days old. Some people will graft these real big ones. We'll put it down here where maybe you can see a little bit better. That's actually got royal jelly on there, and that larva there is about 2 days old. That's about the maximum size you want to do. So it's the same technique. You bring it over here, you put it in the, it wants to be dead center, you let that thing retract, you swipe out. You pull out of that tool. This is actually the grafting technique. Okay, I'll just kind of keep your video going there, and I'll try to finish this frame out, and then because Ray is waiting there. It's a big time sequence here doing this. You can't, the frames come in here, we don't like to have these frames underneath the lights here more than 5 to 6 minutes, and then we like to have the frames go right back out to where Victor was at those queenless hives. And I'll show you here just in a second when I get this one done. I've personally been grafting queens for over 30 years, so my eyesight's getting a little bit bad, so I'm wearing glasses. Plus I have to have this magnifying thing to see what I'm doing here. And it's kind of like, and I really have, my heart goes out to dentists, how they can look in your mouth and see the little cavities and then try to, it's almost the same procedure to try to fill in little gaps. One thing I always like to do, and my sister always comments on, is make sure all your things are in it. I don't know if you can see, maybe we'll do this just for the fun of it, and I'm not sure how that's going to turn out at all. Can you see through that at all? Mm-hmm. Okay, well there's 17 of those in a row. They're actually, and I'll turn this sideways, they're actually glued on there with beeswax. I'll turn them back over, but every one of those has a larva in it. One of the big things about this is too to make sure there's no dirt or a lot of foreign material. These cups here happen to be brand new. They're made out of plastic. We buy these from an outfit in Minnesota. They're actually rough inside, and what we like about them is when we, I'll put this here for just a second, I'll switch this back up. What we like about them is when we get ready to pry them off, you can take these off, and we'll have you out here again to do the actual cell put on and in the field, but you can pry these things off releasing. They have this knife, kind of like a knife edge on them, so when we put these in a queenless little nuke, you can actually put those in there and they'll sit like that. Actually, the queen cell will be drawn out, so you can take that and push it in, and you can push it in pretty good, because on a waxed one that's been a pure wax, they tend to cave in, but these are really nice. You can just shove them in like that. That's the way it'll be hanging in the beehive. It'll be pointed down. We'll have you back maybe next Sunday or so, and by that time we'll be loading nukes. So, but that can be positioned. The ideal place is in the center of the hive, and most guys like to take and put some people have a little tool. They'll put a little indentation, put that cell on there like that there, and it'll hang right like that. So here comes Mike. He's got another frame. I think I'll rotate this frame out. Okay. And I wanted to show you that too. Every one has a number on it. So this will go back. This is number 17. It'll go back into the hive out there. This number 17. Mike, take this one. Okay. So this will go back out into the 17 hive. Those are larvae. Some of those larvae will actually be ready to graft again, and we'll just start doing this again. So I'm not sure what you can see there underneath there, but you want to move. The technique is have the tongue depressed when you go in. I just smashed that one, so you got to do another one right on top of it. It's like a shovel. You keep it down, and then you just try to get underneath it. If you pinch it, then you go to another one. So you keep, there'll be a take of probably around 90% of these here. We add bees to the queenless hives about every 2 to 3 days. We try to put in about 2 to 3 pounds of bees. So those hives really get pretty strong out there. They drink about a gallon of sugar syrup every other day. Some of them drink it in one day. But you keep looking. These larvae, if the larva touches the side of the cell too, you can't get onto it. So you keep moving along here until you get down here to the end. And then it's the same technique again, and I'll turn this light up so you can see again. And we'll go real slow, and we'll see right away. See, I missed one right there. We're always looking for the right size. The size is the problem. It doesn't want to be very much bigger than that end of that tool that's sticking out there, so you keep putting those on. Now there's one of those didn't work out. They've got to also be laying, they can't be flipped over, they got to be laying flat in the cell. So now we'll go back to the light again, and we can get another look at them. There they are again, and we'll check and make sure I didn't foul up there. Okay, that one's done. You also have, the problem, you have a lot of wax on these things. I use my shirt, and you got to clean that wax off, so that end of that thing is fairly clean. There's also disease problems here, transferring different diseases around doing this. We don't have any of those right now, but you can spread a lot of different problems around doing this, so we try to do this in isolation. Actually, this is our wood shop area. We try to do this here to keep it away from our honey area, so if there's any problems turn up here, we can wash the floor, take remedial action. Here comes Aurelia. She's got a frame to graft, and we'll keep moving. She's gonna watch her now. She's gonna take the frames, the cell bars, and then she'll put it into a bar, into a rack. And when she gets around to flipping that over, there's actually some really pretty numbered bills. It has 324 on the top of that stick. So when we start looking around there, we find the larva to put on actually 10 days from now when we start loading nukes here. That number will pop right out, and we go for every box. We don't mark anything on a calendar, so we just go out. We know that we're grafting every other day, so we just go out there on the day they get them, and then we start pulling them out. We'll put them in a chicken incubator, which we haven't set up yet. We're feeding sugar out there. We have pollen cakes on. You have to have a pretty good diet for these bees to actually raise all this royal jelly we're dealing with. So they got to have royal jelly to feed the queen. What really creates the queen bee more than anything else is the excess feeding her royal jelly. Without that excess feeding a royal jelly, you just have an ordinary worker bee. So
So all these will be fed extra royal jelly to become a queen.
yeah, they gotta be fed extra royal jelly. It's probably as high as 10 times as much. There's actually royal jelly when we dip into these frames. To do this from this day here, we're doing it today, there's 24 to 25 days out before we can actually catch the first queen. So we've already been grafting. We're going to start loading bees next week, and we'll have queens here probably in 14 to 15 days from right now. So at that time, then we can use those to either sell or put in our queenless hives or create new hives, which we're trying to do this year. Normally, we try to raise, we're in this new breeding program, so we're trying to raise a lot of these queens out in our own hives. So anywhere we go out in the field and we find a queen that's failing, we will put in another one. We'll find her, kill her, and then we'll put another queen in there, in her spot. The big thing is, when I'm grafting here today, what I'm really looking for are the drones for next year, especially with these, what they call smart queens, which are queens that are going to have to carry the resistant trait. So that we're hoping those drones will mate with some of these Italian queens we're raising, and those that will be more resistant to the ones that are really deadly killers of varroa mites, actually the blood-sucking mite. It doesn't take very many of those mites to come into a hive and actually kill it dead. So we're hoping that those characteristics are carried on. And the only way you do that, you've got to be breeding actually both bees at once. And that's the combination of those two bees, the yellow bee, which is the bee that actually raises a lot of bees, and then the dark characteristic, which is the characteristic of resistant to varroa. And the way the resistance, like I explained a minute ago, was the bees actually go and clip the leg of the varroa, and plus their hairs are a lot tighter on the bee itself, so they can be resistant to that because the mites can't hang on to them. The USDA sent, well, it's actually Dr. Ritter, who's with the government. He's in Baton Rouge, and another couple guys who were kind of like assistants. They went over to the Ukraine, and they'd heard about the resistance factor over there. They spent about 2 to 3 months over there. It's actually in northern Russia, where the bees, over 100 years to build up resistance just by bees dying off, and beekeepers doing what we're doing here right today, transferring this larva. So to make it faster for us, they took those bees and took them to some islands off of Louisiana, had them in isolation, and then after 3 years of fooling with them out there, they decided that they could be a benefit to us, and they picked 3 bee breeders, one in New York, one in that Baton Rouge area, and one here in Southern California, which I just was to last week. His name's Tom Glenn, and he's also raising these resistant things. He's actually got the pure lines. They've got about 5 or 6 lines of these bees. They're like cattle, so they have these to look at. So he's got those lines now. He's got, every year he gets another line, so he's on what he calls the red line. So I have to get 5 of those red line queens, and then they're out back. They're just getting released, so next week when they start laying good, we'll be transferring larvae off of those. So next spring when we go out to get the bees to put in our little nuke boxes, those drones will be there. And the combination of the dark drones and the yellow drones hopefully will carry some of that trait. And basically what happens too, there's kind of a natural selection out there. If a bee is a good bee, it'll tend to survive longer. And that trait, all of a sudden, after about 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden those bees kind of take over. And right now we're seeing that happening. Right now we're getting a lot more darker bees in the field. We found one just by accident that we raised last year in Chico, at a place where we had some bees in downtown Chico. We're actually on the edge of town by Diamond National there. And that turned out to be one of the queens we're grafting on right now. We really think it's got some good characteristics, especially the resistance factors that we're looking for. So you'll find them in the field, plus you can get them from this one guy to try to improve on your resistant levels.
And you also want them from good honey production. And
Oh yeah, they've got to have early spring buildup. The almond pollination nowadays requires the early spring buildup. So plus our stimulating feeding programs of pollen, sugar, they've got to build up quick. And then if they don't, then they're no good. We see this problem in the pure lines of this Russian queen. We have 2 of those out front. We didn't even bring them out back. They don't tend to build up as fast. The situation in Russia is a little different than it is here. We have almonds here, over there they don't, and they're at higher elevations, so they're trying to make honey in July, August. It really creates the varroa problem is when bees are inactive, these varroas really attack all the bees. So these bees that they found, just actually going out to different bee yards where beekeepers were keeping bees out there, they selected off of those, out of those hives, and actually the beekeepers over there helped them, pick what they thought would be good ones too. So it was really a lot of cooperation, considering all the world tension going on. Now to have something like that going on, actually our scientists and their lay people, kind of guys like me, told them, well, this is the ones you need, this is the ones you want to do out, and then rounding them up and then taking and putting them in isolation in Baton Rouge out there, and those islands that are out there, and having the cooperation is really incredible considering what's going on today. That all happened about 2 to 3 years ago. They're talking about going back over the story I've heard already. They're already talking about going back and looking for more. And I think they've already been invited by the Russian beekeepers to come back and they've invited them over there. So we're all pretty happy to see that, that kind of cooperation. And their benefit out of it is if we can develop, a super bee, then we'll be trading back. What we learn from them, we can also make, cooperate with them. So we've already been telling them that, we may share, if we get something, worth something over here, we'll be sharing back with them. So it's amazing that we're actually dealing with Russian beekeepers and U.S. beekeepers with kind of government kind of in the middle of it, kind of directing traffic. That's happening in some other ag fields. I've heard of in kiwis, and they're trying to maybe start doing that in livestock. They're talking about doing that in livestock already. So we're looking along here. We don't policy it, we don't guess, we look. So that way you look in the hives and you know exactly what you got going.
One thing when you open these cell builders up and you go add another rack in here, you just want to give them one little tiny puff of smoke. Because otherwise the bees sense that something's going on and then they'll attack the cells that they're raising and kill them.
Yeah, too much
just
smoke
give them
is no
one
good.
little puff of smoke. What I'm doing is opening these frames up here so that there's enough gap when I pull this other rack out that it doesn't smash the cells that I'm pulling out, which is this here we put in 2 days ago on 322. And these are the cells that they're raising, which you can see right here.
Give it to me over here.
And they're taking pretty good.
Yeah, this is what happens in 1 day.
And you're holding that upside down from where
It's actually upside down. You want to hold them upside down when you're doing this. Those grubs will fall out of there. They're not in there. But these misses were probably something I smashed or I missed. I'm normally missing those. But up here, there's a miss. There's probably 50, about 45 on this rack here. But you can see what's going on. These bees are actually building. They're actually building on these frames here. Let's see. We'll look right here. Here's one here feeding in there. That one there's actually feeding. Let's see. Yeah, here's one here. He's probably building right here. So there's bees doing different things right now. They're actually doing different things. Once I put these, here's some right here building wax right here. These 2 guys right here. They're actually working on that frame right there. So these will be shut off probably tomorrow. These will be done. So they've got royal jelly in there, and then these here will be ready to put out in the field probably.
Another thing you look for too on these frames is when you're putting another rack in here, the bees will actually raise another queen in here. And all these queen cells, so what you got to do is come here through here and cut these off. Otherwise, if you let them go too long, you'll get a virgin queen that'll hatch out in here, and then they'll end up killing all the cells that you're raising. So that's one thing I do is check on these frames. You can see here on the bottom, there's all these raised cells up. There's 1, 2, 3, and you need to get rid of those. So otherwise, that causes problems down the road.
Well, what happens? Those cells will hatch out early. The queen will actually come out and kill these cells here. All right, I gotta give you this
Okay, I
back.
need to get that one and put that one back in the.
Okay, so what he did there, he put the new rack by the feeder,
Yeah.
and then the other rack is going to be this. We move them across the box, so we're moving them across the box. As they get sealed off, they get moved across. So in that box here, we'll have 3 racks probably by Tuesday. We'll probably be pretty much done with that box. So when we get about 150 racks in here, we'll be done grafting. So then we wait until the put out day, which is as early as Friday this week here. So pollen cake, you know,
Got to put a pollen cake in there so they
can chew on that.
chew on
And
that.
what's in the pollen cake?
Okay, we have a product called B Pro and B Pollen, dry vert sugar, and it's all mixed up in a pizza mixer. And then we put it on 2 sheets of wax paper. Yeah, it's consistency actually of ice cream. You put it on that paper and then you mash it flat. And then that lid, when that lid goes down there, it's actually flat on there. So they'll come up through those top bars and chew on those, and then grooves there. So we put the sack back on.
And the sack is for?
There's actually a smell that comes out between the lid. So the bees will try to fight because there's sugar in that cake that's in there. They'll smell that cake and they'll want to come poke around. So all the hives have entrance sticks.
Yeah.
So it's actually slows them down a little bit. We have
It keeps them one hive from robbing another.
yeah, that's right. So we have sprinklers here in the ground. We have garden hoses here. So when we first started out here, they were fighting pretty good. So we got these sprinklers going. We run these sprinklers in the daytime, so it puts out enough water here to keep everybody calm. So it acts like rain. It imitates rain.
It keeps them in their hive.
Kind of keeps them in their hive, and it keeps them from fighting. These sacks get wet and they can't hang on. So he's doing the same procedure here. He's going to pull that rack, move it over, and then he's going to be looking at it to see if it took. And
That took
good, okay.
about 40%.
Okay. So then you gotta have lots of bees in these hives. We'll be adding to these bees probably tomorrow again. So then you go back in there. The beauty of these plastic cells, the ones that don't take, we take those peels back off. We put them in a cage and we pressure wash them off, and then we put those back on again. So there's nothing wasted here. And then in the field we bring those back in. So we keep recycling them. And what we like about them, they're hard, so you can take a little more abuse. Put the frames, always want the frames together so they don't draw a lot of stray wax in there, on those racks especially, because that makes it difficult to get those cells off. Then the lid wants to go right back on there. And then you slap that sack on. Sometimes the wind will blow here and blow them off, but if it's blowing hard, then the bees aren't fighting anyway. Okay, well basically that's what we have to show today, and we'll probably do this again next weekend. Thank you very much. We'll see you again.